Welcome to Accelerated. In Accelerated, William Mills and the Venture Center pull back the curtain for you to share a behind-the-scenes, candid look at how fintech banking deals are really made and why they're important. In our debut episode of Accelerated, William Mills agency Heather Sugg and the Venture Center's Wayne Miller talk with ICBA ThinkTECH Accelerator alumni A.K. Patel of Lendsmart and Patrick Sells, formerly of Quantic Bank, about how fintechs and banks can develop deep relationships that help both achieve greatness. They discuss a topic that you'll hear throughout the series, that bankers are no longer comfortable with a status quo. The community bank industry is relying on bank and fintech partnerships to provide convenience, ease, and transparency, and relate to consumers quickly.
Welcome to our series, conversation and a beginning of a series of conversations with fintechs and bankers discussing insights on partnerships and tips for accelerating growth in the fintech world. This is a series brought to you by the Venture Center and the William Mills Agency. We're working together to feature these collaborations and how we're advancing the financial technology industry.
So today we're launching with Lendsmart, a company based on a personal need, and their relationship with Quantic Bank, which is somewhat ironic, as you'll learn. So we have AK joining us from London, Patrick joining us from New York City. Thanks for making it. So why don't you start off by telling us how your partnership began?
I've always been in fintech, working for fintech companies, and Lendsmart was created or developed through one of my pain points. Unfortunately or fortunately, it was a process I went through with Quantic Bank. Now, this happened in 2018, I believe. My wife and I were purchasing a home in Atlanta, and our real estate agent advised us to use Quantic because Quantic has financed a lot of properties in that community. So then we went with Quantic, we gave them our documentation, our paperwork, etc. And I thought the process was going to take 60 days, which is kind of the average process here in the US. But it ended up taking 3 months. Now, at the end of those 3 months, we were frustrated. We were like, why is buying a home so hard? Why isn't anyone solving the end-to-end journey? Why isn't anyone solving the back-end efficiencies? After we closed, my wife and I went out for a celebration dinner to say, thank God we've got through this. And we had a bit of back and forth to say, can we truly fix this? Can we truly fix the end-to-end journey for home buyers? Because right now it's very broken. Right now, there are people who are fixing the mortgage origination, but then there are fixing the home buying journey. And as home buyers, you just want to move into your home as quick as possible. We don't want to kind of figure out what we need to do to move into that home, or currently we do have to, right? You end up spending so much time and weeks to figure out these key milestones. So I guess that's where I decided to, thanks to Quantic, I decided to quit my job and empty my life savings to develop Lendsmart.
And I can share a little bit of context on Quantic. I joined about 2 years ago, and Quantic is a community bank headquartered in New York. We do specialize from a lending standpoint in mortgages, as AK found out. And about 2 years ago, we began the process of saying we wanted to evolve into a digital bank. And what does that mean? And we didn't even really know. About a month into it, we came up with a new tagline, the adaptive digital bank. And we just kind of put it out there. And I think over the last 2 years, we've been able to do a lot to improve and change Quantic and make it more digital. And that's been because of partners and relationships with people like AK and Lendsmart and the Venture Center. They've helped us find the fintechs that we need. And really, I think when we think about it, like one of the most powerful lessons as we've looked back was this realization that as a bank, I need a partner, not a vendor. And I think, words are so powerful, and even coming into the industry, seeing things like vendor management, vendor, that speaks to a transaction. And if the transaction works, then great. And if not, it's kind of too bad, right? And what you need is a partnership, because all community banks and fintechs and partners like the Venture Center, we're trying to figure out how to do something new, something that's not been done before. And that means we got to have a relationship with each other. And I think, it's a testament to AK's character and Lendsmart. Here we are 2 years later, and we're doing a webinar together talking about how banks and fintechs need to work together. It's a partnership that wouldn't have happened had it just been seen as a transaction.
I think those are incredible points, and I think Heather and AK and Patrick, it speaks to the courage both on the banking side and also on the fintech side. AK, great courage. Obviously, you've put your life savings on the line, as you've indicated, et cetera, to go out there and fix something that's broken. And, we see a lot of early stage companies and startups come through the venture centers we recruit and so forth. And, it's a courageous step, right? There's a lot of pretty horses out there, but we love great jockeys like you. And that's really what's so exciting. But also, as it relates to Patrick's efforts, the efforts of Quantic, which is willing to be transparent, willing to be vulnerable, willing to say, hey, we can't necessarily do this on our own. And Patrick, I love the way you put it from the standpoint of not being transactional, but relational, right? That if we work at this together, which is, now a fairly common mindset, but going back 5 years ago, fintech was the grim reaper, right? We were coming after the banks and they were going to eat your lunch, I think was the term, et cetera. But, and look at the power of what can happen if we work at this together. And, I'll tell you, at the Venture Center, we didn't recognize the profound position we had put ourselves into, where we've been able to create trust with the banks and the fintechs and bring them together in an environment where they can collaborate effectively. And we're grateful that we've earned the trust for both the fintechs as well as the banks to create that sort of environment. So these are great times, and I think great opportunities for those that don't have the capacity to build these solutions at the smaller institutions, right? And there's an opportunity to buy and partner to this degree. So these are great times.
The whole word relationship, right? I feel like banks have forgotten about the relationship, like Patrick mentioned, and it's been very transactional. I'm gonna just relate this to my experience in mortgages, etc. So a bank would want my hard-earned money, but not care about my customer journey. And I guess that's where it kind of hit home to Lendsmart and myself, is why you want me to use you as a checking, as a savings, and put my life savings into your bank account, but you want to end this relationship once the application is done. And I guess that's where one of our core value propositions is that, hey, bank, own the customer journey, own that relationship end to end. It does not stop once the application is completed. So I guess what Lendsmart is, an AI-driven digital lending platform, and we've coupled it with a home buying marketplace. It's a white label solution which allows those lenders to help that borrower through the hardest purchase, and then help them with those key other milestones they're going to need to do to achieve to move into that home quicker. Everyone wants to move into that dream home, but everyone hates the process. So I guess that's where Lendsmart come in and allow our lenders to own that relationship, own that journey from end to end.
Playing off what you mentioned there about relationships, and Wayne, thank you for the Venture Center really forging the path of showing the trust that's needed in this industry. I think one of the things that has struck me into the notion of both those ideas of relationship and trust is that also the way banks have relationships with each other, and how they work together, and being willing to say, hey, look, here's a fintech that I just used and it's great for me. And what today I oftentimes see is the bank doesn't want to share that with another bank. Right. And so we've taken kind of a different approach to say, look, if here's a fintech that we've worked with and we've liked, we want to show you everything we can about it, from policies and procedures and how it's gone, because ultimately we care about two things. One, to AK's point, the overall customer experience in the journey in the financial industry, not just our customers, but making things better for everyone. And then secondly, the more banks that use Lendsmart, the better Lendsmart becomes for Quantic. Right. And especially so many of these fintechs don't have lots of bank relationships. And yet we're willing to trust them kind of nervously, but we don't really do anything as a partner to help them grow. Right. And that's been one, I think, the really fun things about the relationship with the Venture Center and AK and Lendsmart for Quantic is being able to really truly mean like partnerships and relationships and bring that in with other banks.
It's a really important point you bring up, Patrick, because I think more banks, now that things are expedited and happening faster than ever, are finding themselves in the point where they need to have that partnership with the fintechs, and they're opening up to that. So while companies like yours from Lendsmart and Quantic have been at this for 3+ years already, what are some other tips for bankers and fintechs that are trying to make the most of their relationships together?
Yeah, I think a couple of observations that I've had is one, as someone I've talked to a couple hundred banks this year, like they're looking at a fintech and the fintech has told them, here's why my technology is great and here's why it's better for your customer. And they're talking about the bank's customer, but they're not taking the full picture of their customer's needs, which is the bank into consideration. The fintech's customer is a bank, is regulated. And if they're going to be doing something new, they likely don't know how to do compliance, or maybe they've never done it, or they're scared to come up with the new policies or new procedures because they have not used you before, right? And so I think one of the ways the partnerships can be deeper is by one, fintechs asking their banks like, hey, you figured out how to implement me and what compliance framework was needed. Can you educate us, right, as the fintech? And can you even educate other banks about it? Don't just be a reference call to say, yes, VDD went well and yes, they implemented it on time. Like actually help each other out. I think that's a different way of doing it. And I think also that's when I think fintech leaders and bank leaders to build friendships to solve for those very types of problems. And that's where you've got a great, outlet in like the venture center to be able to bring some of those learnings and relationships for the betterment of the industry. And so I guess I really just, again, if someone's a friend of mine or a relationship and a partner, I care about their holistic growth and success, and to bring that approach into all aspects of the fintech bank relationship.
And I guess from a fintech standpoint, and some of the lessons we've learned is find that true partner, find that bank who's going to truly find value in using your solution. Make sure you do your research, make sure you have analytics behind it to say, well, this bank offers these products and does this amount of loans per se, and have these many loan officers. It must be spending on average 10,000, which is the average now, which is about $10,000 to process a loan. If we can take them, Lendsmart say, guys, we can save you about 90% if you use a self-service solution like ours. Does that add value? Just not just for your bottom line, but hey, we can also provide an amazing customer experience. Make sure this experience is sticky, and make sure this customer will end up being a customer for life. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, I wish there was some sort of hub where we can get this knowledge of what do we need to tick off before we come to you. What compliance, SOC, security measures do we need to achieve before we even speak to you, right? And personally, I don't like the herd mentality where if one bank jumps on, everyone else will jump on it. It's if there's a hub where we can go through to say, yeah, we've validated this. They've got all their checks, they have all these security policies, and here are the metrics. This is what they can do for you. They can save you X amount per loan transaction, increase the customer journey. You guys should end up using it if this is something you need. So that's what we would want from a fintech, is some transparency. Instead of finding this out through multiple calls, multiple demos, to being bounced around from a chief technology officer to a cybersecurity officer to say, all right, now we need to go back, and now we've just gone back 6 months because we need these accreditations, and this bank won't look at us until we get those accreditations.
I think you both say that there's an underlying message to what I think both of you have said too, which is that fintechs have had to learn and continue to learn how to work with banks, and banks continue to learn and need to learn more how to work with fintechs, right? I mean, the message here is clear, is that the better prepared you are to conduct business with the bank, there's so many significant hurdles, whether they're regulatory or compliance, security, things that you mentioned, AK in particular, and Patrick as well, that if we can be open about those things and make sure people can kind of check those boxes off ahead of time, it makes it quite easy. The other thing too is that, the banks are in a unique position by engaging with these companies to help shape them and make them successful, right? And there's a lot of pain to change in the banking world. Obviously, changing the core is a huge undertaking, for example, right? But being able to add on top of that technology with obviously the advent of APIs and our capacity to access data and bring that together and aggregate it effectively, much of what AK does with Lendsmart, and improve the quality of that journey. And the other part of your message, I think, is very interesting, obviously from the collaboration perspective and the partnership perspective, but also from the standpoint of the term LTV, right? Like lifetime value, right? That's, if we think about our customers in that fashion, then we aren't thinking as transactionally. We're thinking certainly more relationship oriented. And how do we help them get that first car loan and help them buy that first house and help them plan for retirement and their children's college education and so forth? That lifetime opportunity for a bank is extraordinary. And I think technology and these partnerships is helping us to exploit that in a positive way. And really, I think we see more of that in community banking and the work that we do, obviously with the ICBA. These folks are the banks on Main Street in America, and they've built their businesses with the high touch. And as Kevin Tweddle from the ICBA likes to say, we're trying to figure out the high touch and the high tech, and partnerships are the key to that solution. So I think you guys have great messages here, both of you.
Well, I think it's worth, one of the things that has stood out to me about, you mentioned LTV, is for many banks, like, to understand, I guess, stepping back, that the way the market is set up today, in particular mortgages, there's actually a pretty strong disincentive, because most banks aren't going to own that mortgage, right? With what's happened in the economy and the industry. So yeah, I get that. It really is more transactional, right, than it probably should be. And I think just thinking about broadly in the financial world, like, where are things set up to create tension? And then how can banks and fintechs partner together to say, look, this may be how the liquidity in this market works, but that doesn't mean it has to come at the expense of the customer, right? And that's exactly, I think, part of what Lendsmart has solved for. And there's other fintechs trying to solve for those same things, which is making it a better experience and an easier financial journey for the consumer.
Let's take that and look at it a little deeper too, because moving forward with where we are in the economy right now, we've had mortgages go through all of these refis already. Interest rates are at historically low prices. So with everything going on via the pandemic, and how is that impacting business? What do you see as next steps for what's going on?
So the impact of the pandemic is, it's sort of difficult to quantify or qualify, because it is, I remember reading at the beginning of the year an article in Forbes magazine about how this next decade was going to shape the issue of where we work and working from home and these sort of things. And it was the next 10 years we were going to work on that. I think that happened in like the last 5 months, right? So we've certainly accelerated that, and as we all work from home and so forth. But I think, I know some folks who are a little later on in life who are retired and at home, who looked forward to going to the grocery store every day. And now they have learned how to order groceries at home and how to transact that, right? And get them delivered to their house. Talking, of course, about Collins, who you guys both know. It is a different world. We didn't think, we thought contactless payments, 6 or 8 months ago was kind of an interesting concept. And now it's the way in which we want to transact. So one of the things that we're seeing is the fintechization, or the embedded fintech aspect to everything that we do. And I think it's exciting. It's exciting because we're seeing banking as a service as we look at how we support merchants and so forth. We even, think about the journey of going to buy a house today, and the market's on fire. You can't find a house, AK. I hope that's a good thing for you, of course. And I know in my own neighborhood here where I am, there is no inventory, and houses have increased 25%, in the last 6 months, because people are, frankly, fleeing from some of the larger cities because they can work from anywhere. We have a workforce that's likely not going to return to the office, at least 50 or 60% of them. So while we seek what this new normal will be, clearly it's going to be a hybrid in our existence, and fintech's going to play a huge role in technology to be able to support that effectively in everything that we do. So I think it's exciting. I also think it has been clearly the catalyst, or perhaps the fire, or the kick in the butt, however you want to put it, to those who are lagging behind a little bit and thinking about, well, things are okay the way they are, where we've got remote check capture, we can do that, and do remote deposit. We're all set. Well, it certainly is getting a lot more complicated than that. But I think Patrick and AK can speak to this even better than I have.
Yeah, I mean, just from personal experience on kind of selling Lendsmart, especially to some ICBA community banks, pre-COVID, they were very kind of inclined to keep what they have, right? If it's not broke, let's not fix it. We like that human touch. We like our borrowers coming in, and then pandemic happened, and in 3 months they were at standstill.
Mhm.
They were sending FedEx labels back and forth to process a loan. As Heather mentioned, interest rates are at all-time low. It can't get any lower, right? Otherwise, the bank has to pay you money. Refinances are at all-time high. Home buying, especially in the burbs, are, like you mentioned, at all-time high. What's going to happen when all these relief programs end? Foreclosures and REO is going to be skyrocketing. Are those people who didn't move now looking to move? But yeah, it's definitely all over the place. And but hey, Lendsmart allows these banks not just to keep that relationship, but offer them that technology which gives them that high touch, personal touch.
One observation I would add to it, and when I think about not just like today or tomorrow, but what does this mean 1 or 2 or 3 years from now? To AK's point, we've never seen this mass amount of refinancing happening at these all-time lows. And most mortgage brokers or banks rely on a pretty reliable part of refinancing, ongoingly. And you're not going to be able to have that same market in 2-3 years because rates can't get lower. And so what happens then? So right now it's kind of this boom time, right? Everyone's staffing up and doing all these things. Makes me think of that great Warren Buffett line, right? When others are greedy, be scared. And when others are scared, be greedy. Right now, and there's a way I think you can kind of try to straddle it, which is like, yes, take advantage of this opportunity, help your customers. But I think all the more it shows the need for Lendsmart. So a lot of companies I've heard, like, we don't need any new technology. We got all the business we can handle. Sure, but you need to do everything you can to make your bank or organization more efficient and more effective, because the market, at least in mortgages, is going to change dramatically. And that's another thing I really love about Lendsmart is its ability to help bring down that cost for both the consumer and the bank. And I think it will be even more important 2 years from now.
I think that high touch capability is going to be even more important too, as people might falter or have issues that they see in the future. Having that ability to reach out and be of assistance is more important than ever in times like those.
Yeah, also just add to that, the other thing too is the expectation of a large percentage of our market today is what has become to some degree a standard in how we transact, which is, the reason Amazon's doing well is because it's easy. It comes right to my door. That's the beauty of, I think, what people like Patrick and AK are trying to drive is the convenience, the ease, the transparency, and that I can get a mortgage sitting on my couch at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, watching The Voice, while I'm eating a pizza and sipping a Coke. It's pretty amazing, and do that in a time frame that's not 3 months or 120 days, but rather hours, because the information is out there and that data is available to us, and the technology enables us to do it. But you got to have people with vision and courage that these two guys have to make that happen. And customers want it, and now they want it more than ever, and they're looking for it, because we're going to be where we are for a while yet. And it hasn't stopped people selling cars or buying groceries or buying a new set of headphones on Amazon or buying a house, right? So those things are booming, and financial technology is at the core of making that successful.
Technology over the last 10 years has developed so much. We can fly into space in about 90 minutes. We can drive 300 miles without being behind the wheel, but yet it takes me 60 days to get a mortgage. Wayne mentioned, why can we not get a mortgage? Not just a mortgage, because a mortgage is just a milestone which a borrower needs to achieve to move into the home. Why can they not buy a home from their couch? And Lendsmart offers that solution. So
it's a great story of how you were connected and how the Venture Center and ICBA were able to make these connections and what you've launched from here. I appreciate you getting together and sharing it. It's inspirational and helps us moving forward as an industry and community banks in general too. Are there any other points you think we should add?
Just grateful to be a part of this, Heather. Thank you. And thanks to the William Mills Agency, and thanks to AK and Patrick. Love you guys, what you're doing, and the impact that you're having on our industry. And thanks for your confidence in the Venture Center and our ability to create that profound capacity to bring you all together to help shape the future of fintech. It's a real pleasure and real honor to play that role.
And I mean, I just wanted to deeply thank the Venture Center and ICBA, because without them, we wouldn't be where we are in a short amount of time. So they've not just mentored us, not just helped us, but gave us those relationships we need to accelerate and get Lendsmart into every community bank we can.
Been awesome building our relationships and partnerships, and look forward to all of our stories continuing to evolve and farther intertwined together.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Accelerated. We hope you enjoyed it. Join us next time to hear from Finsley and Lead Bank about their opening of the banking ecosystem, their digital acceleration, and their vision to help community banks compete. Have an idea for an episode? We want to hear from you. Email Heather@williammills.com.